Hello, welcome to another episode of Montana Shares, your opportunity to find out about the nonprofits that make our state so great. Today we have Bike Walk Montana here. We have Melinda and Linley. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good, how are
Good.
you?
So, as we were talking earlier, Melinda was the first episode we recorded, and now you're back. So, in case people's memory didn't stretch that far back, who's going to tell us what Bike Walk Montana is all about?
I will.
Okay.
Bike Walk Montana, we're a nonprofit organization, so we work really hard to make biking and walking safer throughout the state through a variety of ways, through improving the laws and policies, through education, through working with communities and assisting them with their own local initiatives and the things they're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. And you're involved with accessibility as well, is that right?
Right. Part of our mission is to make biking and walking safe and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And accessibility, I think, is something that's oftentimes overlooked, and that's making sure that there's curb ramps, making sure that all the facilities can be accessed by people using wheelchairs or walkers or canes or who are visually impaired. And so there's multiple things that can be done, including curb ramps, where benches are placed, where trash cans are placed.
Okay. So I don't know exactly where to go with these because they all sort of intertwine so much, but recently I saw someone biking with a pool noodle tied to their bike. What's the story on this?
Right now, we are working to get a law passed through our legislature that would define a safe passing distance between a motor vehicle and a bicyclist. We would like at least 3 feet of space. So the noodle represented the space that a motor vehicle should give a bicyclist when passing them on the road.
Okay.
And it was really cool because they were in 5 communities?
Yep, we had a ride in Great Falls, a ride in Billings, a ride here in Helena, a ride in Anaconda, and a ride in Missoula.
It's a great visual representation. I know some of the real serious bikers probably would not think of ruining their aerodynamics with the noodle hanging off the side. But
It actually doesn't really mess with it because they're so lightweight and they blow with the wind, so you don't even notice it attached to the
these
bike.
are guys that shave their legs, so
Yeah.
it's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
No, I'm sure it won't.
So since you're talking about legislature, let's talk about how legislature was this last year.
Legislature ended on a good note, and we helped to get one bill through the legislature which establishes funding for maintenance of shared use paths and bicycle and pedestrian education. And the way that is collected is through vehicle registrations. And so now there's a box on the vehicle registration form that you can check and contribute $5, and it will go towards that. And then it's spent in the district where it was collected.
Okay.
So next time you register your vehicle, check the box and pay the $5.
Okay, I'll do it. Truth of the matter is I will.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of education, we had been floating the Missouri River up by Wolf Creek and driving back, and we decided we'd take the frontage road since my grandson hadn't seen it. And I'm coming around the corner and I've got a whole family of people biking directly toward me against traffic, and their own car is now pulled out and is in the other lane. Let's educate some people on where you're supposed to ride and what the rules are.
Mm-hmm. State law, which changed in 2015 legislative session, clearly states that bicyclists can ride out in the middle of the travel lane. And that's actually what we teach oftentimes is if the shoulder is unusable or if there's no bike lane, so if there's parked cars, if there's debris, if there's no shoulder at all, then that bicyclist really should be out in the middle of the travel lane because that makes them more visible. It helps to cause the driver to actually slow down and wait until it's clear to pass that bicyclist and safe. And then it also actually causes the driver to move over further and give more distance when they're passing the bicyclist.
Okay.
And bicyclists should ride in the direction as traffic is moving. And when you're a pedestrian walking, you should walk against traffic.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Most all the time I'm out cycling, I'm always impressed with how much space the motorists give. I have to say most of my experience has been super positive as far as people taking the whole entire lane and giving me the entire lane. So there's probably a few out there that don't, but I'm saying Montans are pretty polite. So what was the other thing I was going to talk about? You have let's just stick with education. We'll rant for a second before we get back to the serious stuff. I didn't know this. I've been a driver for X number of decades. And tell us about who has right-of-way at any intersection in Montana.
Pedestrian, every time, unless they have a signal that tells them not to cross. Otherwise, the driver is required to stop at every single intersection and let that pedestrian cross, regardless if there's a marked crosswalk or not.
Okay, and this is probably the least followed law in Montana, if I had to guess.
That would be my guess.
We share office space close to Lyndale, and just try crossing Lyndale or Euclid at a corner where by law they should be stopping, and it's the rare person that does stop.
It is.
So I'm going to go back to the camera. No, stop for people at all intersections. All pedestrians have right-of-way. That's what we want to say, right?
Right, and we actually have a campaign that we're kicking off, and that was through a very generous grant of the Helena Community Foundation, where they're helping us do this pedestrian campaign that will be creating a video to let drivers know that they need to stop, and then it'll also cover a billboard in Helena letting drivers know they need to stop. So hopefully we can see some shift with those.
I think we can do this one person at a time. You've converted me several years ago, and I'm trying to keep telling everyone that that's the case, so it's a good try. So what else have you been doing to help communities around the state with biking and walking safety?
Well, through all of our technical assistance and working with communities individually, one-on-one, and then also through different workshops, we've helped them understand what they can do better to promote biking and walking in their communities to attract bicycle tourists. So some of the things that are happening out there are communities are putting in more bike racks, they're installing bicycle camps, they are reconfiguring roadways so that they can include bicycle lanes and sidewalks and shared use paths. So we're seeing, and they're creating better plans, like active transportation plans, downtown master plans. So there's really a lot happening all around the state.
Mm-hmm. And you gave me an incredible number once, that just the Hiawatha Trail, how much money does that bring into those communities over in western Montana?
I believe it's $10 million a year.
Just to go ride the old railroad bed?
That's the Hiawatha Trail and the Trail to Coeur d'Alene's, which is nearby, yeah.
Okay. And I know I've traveled to Kalispell to go ride on trails there. I've traveled down to Three Forks. So I think communities should know that people come there to bicycle. I mean, right now we've got a huge boom going on in Helena with our mountain biking trails.
Yep. And actually there was a study done a few years ago on bicycle tourism in Montana, and that discovered that bicycle tourism in Montana generates about $377 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Staggering numbers.
It is staggering numbers. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
The smoke right now that we're having isn't exactly conducive to much exercise at all, but at least when it clears up a little bit, we'll be out there enjoying it a lot more than going out with a mask.
Right.
Okay, Montana Commuter Challenge. Tell me about it.
The Montana Commuter Challenge is a challenge that we host every month of May every year, and it is a challenge that encourages people to ditch their car for the month and try alternative routes for transportation, such as bicycling, walking, or taking public transit.
And what are the benefits of that?
Definitely health improvement. It reduces stress. It's better for the environment. It relieves traffic congestion. And it's just fun to challenge coworkers and other businesses around the state just to see who will put in the most.
So it's logged on miles, or?
Yes, logged on miles. Trips commuted.
Okay, so I always like to throw these questions out that you don't come prepared for. How many miles were generated in May? Do you have any ballpark figure?
Oh.
Wasn't it like 161,000?
Yeah, millions of calories burned.
CO2 saved. But it seems like the miles equate to about 10 trips around the world.
Yeah.
That's just in Montana, people trying to ditch their car for a month.
For a month.
Pretty amazing.
It is. Yes.
That's wild. Wow, okay. So you've got a summit coming up of some sort. What's it called?
The Bike Walk Summit. So we're doing this every 2 years now. So that will be in March in Bozeman. And it's an opportunity where we bring people from all over the state together to talk about bicycling and pedestrian issues, or not issues, but topics. So it's basically a conference setting, and there'll be all kinds of breakout sessions. We'll have keynote speakers and a wide variety of presentations. It's really good, and it's a great opportunity for people to come together and network and learn from each other.
Okay. What's the date? People are going to go to your website to find out the date, but we can actually say it out loud probably. What's the date on it?
March 23rd through the 25th in
Okay.
Bozeman. Yep, and more information can be found on our website.
Okay. And so how can people support Bike Walk Montana?
By becoming a member. We are a member-driven organization. By attending events, we are always looking for people who are willing to lead walks or bicycle rides in their communities. It's really easy here in Helena because Melinda and I are here, but we really want the entire state to benefit from all the wonderful things that come from bicycling and walking. And so if people are interested in hosting those rides or leading those walks, then they can reach out to us and we'll help them promote it and organize it in their community.
Excellent. What else should we be talking about?
Well, I think there's a lot of momentum in Montana right now, and we're seeing that really on every level, and just the communities and what they're doing, and I think all of that comes together and just provides a statewide momentum, and we're seeing a lot of positive change happening in Montana, which is, it's so exciting.
So we have time. Let's just, one of them that I like to ride is I go down to Three Forks, and you can ride from the town of Three Forks out to Headwater State Park. It's about, I think, 10, 12 miles round trip. What's one of yours?
I really like the River Trail in Great Falls. I think that's pretty pretty phenomenal. It's a very long trail now, follows the river. I used to take my son up there every year.
And it's right beside the river.
Yep.
You're looking right at water and ducks and whatnot.
Right.
Okay.
I
You done-
really love to ride and walk in Whitefish. The Whitefish trails are connected well, they're wide, they're very accessible to all levels, and I just really enjoy that area.
But I do have to say, there's more and more shared use paths being built all across the state all the time. And so I wouldn't limit that to just these two. I think there's fantastic trails everywhere.
I think they come from all different directions. For a community, Three Forks got together and got a grant to do theirs. And then the Rails to Trail system that Kalispell out to Kyla Trail was a lot of fun. I rode that one this summer.
Yep.
And so they come from all different places.
Yep. And then now we have the one from Missoula all the way to Hamilton. The last connection was made in that one. So that's 40-some mile long path.
Okay. So, they're all over. And
we're hoping for more.
You bet. I like that idea.
Communities are wanting more.
Yes,
People of
Montanans want more shared use paths.
It's so, where grandkids are such part of my life right now, it's such a safe way to take them out and get some really good exercise and start pushing their mental boundaries on how far they can ride. They think, when you're going 10 miles, all of a sudden it's a big thing, but once they've done it, they're like, oh, that was easy.
Right. Well, and it's also part of the transportation network, because both Linley and I use the Centennial Trail here in Helena to commute back and forth to work every day.
And my grandkids use it to come from their home over to the office to say hi, too. So the Centennial Trail, and the lengthening of that, and the new prickly pear, that ought to be a really nice trail, another asset to our community.
Absolutely.
That is a nice trail because it runs right by the creek, and you can, I think they have a restroom out there now.
They do, yeah.
Is it open?
Yep.
Yes.
Gosh, I've got to get out on my bike.
Maybe we shouldn't tell though, because right now it's not heavily trafficked. No.
Oh, we've got to use it. I'm looking forward to that. That's great.
Yes, it's nice.
Okay. Well, let's finish on just hammering a couple more things really quick. Tell us about intersections one more time.
Stop for pedestrians at every intersection.
And not just stop
every
for them.
time.
You are required by law to stop at the intersection.
And that includes bicyclists. They are to yield to pedestrians at intersections as well.
Yes, but do not stop for bicyclists at intersections.
Okay.
Bicyclists are vehicles and should be treated as such.
Okay. I think if that's one thing that, as I get out there more and more and know about this, I'm like becoming rabid about that one particular law.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, because it is, raising awareness for that is a huge need. And I think part of what we're faced with is, like you said about yourself initially, is that drivers aren't aware that that's the law, and we need to let them know that it is. And we also just need to create this awareness to actually look for pedestrians, because I think oftentimes they're just not seen because drivers aren't looking for them.
More importantly is sort of who pedestrians are. A huge portion of those are going to be our kids.
Yes.
And then probably a certain degree will be people that are retired or elderly people. And we don't want to be running these people over.
Right.
And so it's not just looking out for pedestrians, looking out for our kids and just making it far safer out there to be walking around.
Yes.
And another thing, as a pedestrian as well, making eye contact with a vehicle and watching for cars stopping for you also helps to prevent accidents, because if you see the car stopping for you and you cross the street instead of waiting or something, then cars start to go around. So just always, if you are the pedestrian, making eye contact with drivers and being aware for people stopping for you as well.
And also being visible and showing the intent that you want to cross the street. So pedestrians, if they're out there at night, and same thing with bicyclists, they need to be visible, wearing some bright clothing or reflective or something. Because unfortunately, too many crashes happen at night due to lack of visibility. And then bicyclists need to be following the rules of the road as well, and they need to have lights and be visible.
Okay. Well, I thank you guys for the work you do, because I personally benefit from both angles that you work. And thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
You bet. And thank you guys for tuning in, and keep watching. We'll have another episode in another couple of weeks.